Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dangerously Optimistic podcast. I'm Ayaan Moledina,
And I'm Damaris Allen.
and we are here from Texas and Florida talking about our respective public education systems and lessons that we have learned in resisting the privatization of public education in our states and across the country. And today we are going to have an amazing conversation about what is going on here in Texas, in the Lone Star State. In our last episode, we talked about Florida and what's going on down there. And so today we're talking about what's going on in my neck of the woods, and we indeed are a Lone Star State. We like to do our own thing. We like to be ourselves. Everything is bigger and better in Texas, supposedly. And we like to think that we're our own country when we are not. Of course, we were our own country for a period of 10 years. It was not very successful. It was not very successful. We outdid California, which was a country for a week. I recently learned that. I did not know that. But Texas was its own country for 10 years. It was not great. And I recently visited Paris for a conference, and there was actually the Embassy of Texas that was there. There was a sign. So, fun fact. Anyways, we like to think a lot of ourselves, and sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not so much. And in this case, it's not so much. Our public education system in Texas is very broken. We chronically underfund our schools. We really are passing programs and policies that are truly strangling the public education system as we know it. And it is in an attempt to discriminate against low-income students, against Black and brown students, and against students from underprivileged backgrounds. And one prime example of that is the recent passage of our voucher program, or what the proponents like to call the ESA bill, the Education Savings Account bill, and school choice, right? What they don't tell you is that when they say school choice, they really mean the schools are choosing the students and not the other way around. And
Wait, so
so,
what you're telling me as a parent, I don't get to just pick whatever school my kid goes to?
no, wouldn't that be nice? No, 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 that's not true. The schools get to choose whether they accept your child. And fun fact, if you have a student with disabilities, if you have a student that's not Christian, if you have a student that maybe is not even white, uh-oh, you may not get accepted. So,
Did, didn't both our states do something, speaking of a student who's not Christian, didn't both of our states do something to try to discriminate against funding certain private schools?
wait, that sounds so familiar. I feel like it was this recent thing that they did where they launched the voucher program and they asked schools to apply to be eligible for these vouchers, and they declined all the Islamic schools. Is that what you're?
Yeah, so ours got mad when they realized they were funding Islamic schools. It's almost like that's a pattern that they only want to fund certain schools, right?
But that can't be it because they don't these people are totally like they don't see color, remember? Like they're totally
Oh yeah.
like they're fine with everyone. Don't worry. Don't worry. I mean, it, it's just sometimes their policies just contradict what they're saying, which,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
politics. It's politics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And they're politicizing our public education, right? I mean, that no problem there.
Right.
And I mean, it's been pretty crazy to see the aftermath of the voucher program in Texas. We had many Republican lawmakers who were opposed to the voucher bill end up being primaried and kicked out of office by none other than Greg Abbott. Our governor spent millions of dollars primarying state legislators who did not agree with him on the voucher proposal, and they ended up
So
getting kicked out.
so can you clarify this for me? So it wasn't that parents and students and families in Texas were asking for this.
Oh no. No.
And
This
how long
no.
did you guys fight it? How long were you successful in pushing back on it before you actually got stuck with the program that no one wanted?
So this there has been a push for decades to get this program in place, and we defeated it over and over again. There was following the legislative session 3 years ago, there was a special session that was called by the governor specifically for vouchers, and the legislature could not act on anything except for vouchers. But they rejected it, and the special session ended, and they couldn't get it across the finish line because there were Republican holdouts. So what the governor ended up doing before the next regular session was making sure that those Republican holdouts did not come back. And then they didn't, and then the Democrats didn't have enough numbers, and all the Republicans there were extremists who had replaced the moderates, and ended up being in a place where vouchers, there was no way to stop them with the Republican supermajority that they have. So what ended up happening was that Senate Bill 2, which is the voucher bill, was pushed forward, and Democrats put forward many amendments. The James Talarico put forward an amendment to put it to a vote in front of the voters of Texas and see if this is something as a ballot item that Texans actually want. But time and time again, the legislature has decided that they know better, whether it comes to public education or whether it comes to abortion, and not wanting to put these types of things on the ballot for the citizens to decide because they already know where the citizens stand on this. They know that voters, particularly in rural areas, don't want these vouchers because they are defunding the public schools. They're taking money that are allocated to the public schools and putting them into private institutions that do discriminate and that are legally allowed to discriminate based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, whatever it may be. And so, I mean, I've been to private schools in Austin where there were literally no people of color in the building. Like, I was literally the only person in the building who was a person of color. Like, these are the types of things. And they don't even hide the fact that, like, they will try to make you Christian. And this is in Austin, which is considered like the blueberry and the tomato soup, right? I mean, there's I mean, truly, this touches every corner of the state. Yeah, I didn't come up with that saying. I think that was a Rick
I love
Perry.
that so much.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We are very proud of our blueness. And so that, I mean, it's truly just mind-boggling to me how we would spend $1 billion on this scam, really,
Yeah.
which they advertise as something, like I said, of school choice, of like it's going to help your kids with disabilities, it's going to do all of this. In reality, it doesn't do that at all because these private schools are not held to state or federal standards that require them to support students with
Mhm.
disabilities. I mean, I was talking to a parent the other day who was saying that the public school's not adequately supporting her students with disabilities, so she's considering a charter school or a private school. And I mean, I had to tell her like that those will not be any better. Charter schools are literally stealing dollars from our regular public schools, and they are fully funded by the state. They get a lot more funding than normal public schools, and they often don't have the same accountability measures. There was actually on the topic of private schools, there was an amendment that was put forward to the voucher bill to make sure that that students in those schools that were receiving vouchers would be required to take the same state standardized tests that public schools students take. But that did not get adopted.
And what's crazy about that is that if it was really about choice, if it was really about allowing parents to make the decision, that would have allowed parents to make an apples to apples comparison, right?
Right.
Because then they could see how all students are performing on tests, how all students are doing, but that's not what's happening. We have the same problem here.
Yeah. I mean, as you all know, it has proven that these programs don't work. They actually do the opposite. They hurt public education. They hurt student outcomes. So I regretfully know that we will see the same thing in Texas. We will see student outcomes decrease. We will see student enrollment in public schools go down, and we will see the loss of public education funding because the legislature is going to continue prioritizing the support of private schools, which a lot of times are the donors of these Republican lawmakers. And there was actually another amendment that was put forward to prevent the children of state legislators from receiving vouchers. But of course, we did not want that. And I will say, the vast majority of folks in the state legislature are well off, are wealthy because they're the only ones who can afford to be there, living on $7,000 a year and being able to take 6 months off of work. So
Yeah.
the demographic. So they certainly don't need their children to have those vouchers, but of course that is. So that's vouchers, but talking a little bit about the rest of the public education landscape in Texas, we have a program that I don't know if you and I talked about in our last episode, if Florida has something similar. We have a recapture program, also known as Robin Hood, which basically the state allocates a certain amount of money that they think each school district needs. And then the school district raises that collects property taxes. And if they exceed the amount of money that the state thinks they need, the state will recapture, will take the rest of those dollars and can give it to other school districts to help even the playing field that have less income, and the rest they can keep to themselves. So it's
Yours is worse than ours. You win
yeah,
this one.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is a program that was in place. It's been in place for about 30 years, and in the beginning it was pretty successful. We saw how it was working. We had a lot of rural low income school districts that were receiving more support because they got more funding from the state. But as property values increased and property taxes increased, the state ended up getting more money, and they kept taking more and more money from the school districts, and they kept giving less and less money to the other school districts that needed it. So what ended up happening is each school district ended up getting the same amount of money despite inflation, despite student growth, and the state just kept taking more and more because the school districts were collecting more in property taxes now as the
Mhm.
years went on, but they could still only keep the same amount of money. And so the state just kept getting richer and richer. So it is I mean, it is literally strangling the school districts. I mean, the school district that I reside in, it's a district of about 47,000 students, about 6,000 employees of the district, 59 campuses. And so it's a relatively large district, and we are this upcoming budget cycle anticipating 5 to $15 million in the red. And we lose to recapture. The state takes $80 million every year from our district. So
Wow.
it's safe to say that if they did not take even a fraction of that money, that we would not be in the red. And I was at the recent school board meeting, and there were teachers coming up and saying, "We want, a 2% raise. We want for teachers who are on a wage, get wages. We want them to go from a $18 minimum wage to $20 minimum wage." And I spoke with leaders in the district who said, "We want to do that, but we don't have the money." And the chief budget officer of the district was talking about how we don't know the impact of school vouchers yet because it hasn't been fully implemented, so we don't know. The school district, the state also hasn't increased the basic allotment that each student gets since 2019. So since pre-pandemic, they haven't updated or increased the basic allotment. They did in 2025. They did in 2025. They just did it, and it's going to be implemented this year. They get each student gets 60, 100, 60, $200 per student, and inflation recommendations said that it needed to be increased by about $1,200, $1,300. The legislature chose to increase it by $55. So we did get an
Yeah.
increase in basic allotment. Don't worry, we did, but the school
So
districts are
basic allotment is like the flexible spending, right? Like that's
right.
what the districts can decide for those who aren't like, because ours is called base student allocation. And
Yeah,
so, by the way, ours is about $1,000 less than yours, even with the increase, and we increase ours every year. So,
lovely. Okay, you can have that one. But we do our basic allotment based on attendance, not enrollment. So
yeah, interesting.
yeah. So which Also doesn't make sense because if there's one day where like a bunch of students are absent, well, too bad because they're not going to get money.
So we do ours. So our funding formula is a little different. So we do have a funding formula where everyone pays in, but it's levelized. So it's based on, it's called the Florida Education Finance Program, and it's been in place since like the early mid 70s, something crazy like that. But what it does is it does give money from richer districts to less property wealthy districts, right? But it's based on how many students are in the schools during 4 counts of the year. So there's 4 counts of the year. So
Yeah.
the crude way to say it is butts and seats. Um, but the state, in theory, can't keep that extra money for themselves, right? In theory, because it's based on the millage amount that you're giving every year. But our millage hasn't increased. It was decreased with the recession and hasn't gone back to pre-recession spending ever. And we have, $15 billion is left after we budget, and they just put it aside for a rainy day. It's crazy.
Yeah, ours is 30 billion. So we beat you a little bit. And like
Yeah.
it's I think 5 billion of that came from recapture. So it's like yeah. Yeah.
One would think that, if you take it for schools, it'd have to go to schools. That like I'm all for giving it to school
Yeah.
districts that need it more. I feel like that's so important that we're sharing equally throughout the state, right?
Yeah.
But for the state to just keep it for a rainy day, like that just is absurd. If you're paying for your taxes towards schools, it should go to the students and it should
Right.
benefit them.
Right. And so when they say, oh, we don't have a state income tax, well, that's not necessarily, you don't code it as that, but really your money is going to the state. And it's mind-boggling because sure, like even if you want to have this program, and like you said, it definitely can have its benefits, then why are we not, after 30 years of having this, why are we not reevaluating and not saying, okay, with inflation, with the increasing costs of having a school district, we're going to increase the amount of money that each school district can keep. And, like if they're in a deficit of $10 million and we're supposed to take 80 million from them, maybe we'll take 60 million from them so that they can have at least 10 million in the green. But no, that's not what we do here. So, and yeah, I don't know what a rainy day would look like. Like, I mean, I guess we had a pandemic and like that, we still didn't really, our governor did not consider that a rainy day and didn't really do anything there. So I don't know what he's looking for. I don't know if the zombie apocalypse is coming in. I just don't know. I would love to be read into that, but that's just not something I know about right now.
Do you end up taxing yourselves again? So what we often do here in Florida is local districts will go after additional sales tax for proper, to deal with capital improvements, and then they'll go after additional millage that those things voters can vote on for funding programs and teachers and things like that. So effectively, we've said, oh, the state's not going to give it to us, so we're going to vote and tax ourselves again to make sure our schools succeed.
Yeah, yeah, we do that, and we've had to do that. So our district did that last year, and they all passed except one. One did not pass, but three out of the four passed, and a lot of it was for like school maintenance and
Mhm.
technology, fine arts programs, all sorts of things that the state would not fund, and we got the money, and yet we're still in the red because the state is just not giving us the money. So yeah, we do that, and what the state is actually now trying to do is actually abolish property taxes. That is a priority of the governor.
Same.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
I feel like they do this together. They get on Zooms and have except they probably go to really nice places and fly there on our
yeah,
dime
not
and
Zoom. Hello? No,
yeah,
no, no, no.
that would
They're
be too practical.
too practical. What? No, no, no. They're flying. Donald Trump is hosting them at Mar-a-Lago. Like that.
Oh,
That
yeah.
sounds nice. I wish I was invited to one of those meetings just to
No, you don't.
I just want to hear what they have to say. Like, I mean, honestly, like the main source of income that these school districts have, we're gonna take it away. Like what? Like it's just like
Well, and it's not even school districts.
yeah,
It's for us, it's roads,
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
parks, it's libraries, it's police, it's firefighters. So like I think people forget that taxes are what allow us to have nice things. I don't want to live in a community without sidewalks. I don't want to live in a community where if my house it catches fire that I gotta like figure out how to use my hose to make it better. Right? Like I just it's just so absurd.
Well,
Yeah.
I wish more people would think like that, but that's not. I think
Yeah, I
people
think
think like that. I don't think people in power think like that.
yeah, I worry that it sounds really good to not have like in theory it sounds really good to not have to
Yeah,
pay this extra money, but like what happens when it all goes away? I feel like all of us are gonna kind of freak out a little bit, and I feel like
yeah,
we're feeling that with schools here, and I think you in a couple of years are gonna feel that in Texas, unfortunately,
yeah,
too, is that as schools close, as it gets harder for parents to find places to take their kids, then they say, "Oh, what happened?" But it was a plan all along, not by the parents, by the people in power.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, oh, and then we're not even funding like our special education programs,
Mhm.
our dyslexia programs. A big topic of debate recently in the Austin area has been transportation because
Oh yeah.
the district had to cut a lot of school bus routes, a lot of it having to do with budget, a lot of it having to do with various things. And it was crazy for me to find out that it costs the district $7 per mile to run each route, and they only get $1 per mile reimbursement from the state.
Oh wow. That's worse than so we operated about a 30-ish%. It's probably lower now because of the cost of gas, but
Yeah.
they reimburse it about 30%. But if you live within 2 miles of a school, you're not eligible for a bus.
Yeah. And it's the same here, but what's different here is like they have like these hazardous road classifications. So like
Yeah.
even if you're under 2 miles, but then it gets really weird because who's classifying those as hazardous? And a lot of
Hmm.
times there's still inequity with which side of the district is being
Yep.
qualified as hazardous. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I feel like we've done a really good job of talking about the dangerous part of during this discussion. The optimistic part. No, so I think there's a couple of things that you said that I think are really hopeful. Is when you were talking about how you fought back vouchers for so long, it really was a bipartisan effort. And I
Yeah.
think it's really abundantly clear that the vast majority of people, regardless of party, regardless of anything, care deeply about public schools and
Yeah.
want them for our kids and for our future. And so, it's really about elevating the voice of those who care more than the voices of those who have power and money at this point, which can you talk a little bit about some of the things you guys that all of you did collectively, especially when fighting vouchers to do that?
Yeah, and I first want to say something that you touched on, which is that we do outnumber the other side. Like we more people support public schools than those who seek to defund them.
Hmm.
The thing is that the people who don't oftentimes have more wealth and oftentimes have more of a voice because of that. So Jeff Yass, who is an out of state billionaire, uh, he was the one who was a multi-million dollar donor to Greg Abbott and to many of the state legislators. And he owns many private schools and many private school systems who is going to benefit from this program. He was the one leading that. And then there were folks from West Texas, billionaires and oil tycoons and all sorts of things that were doing this. And then, of course, Donald Trump called all the Republican state legislators in the House and told them that they had to vote for this, and that if they did, he would give them each an endorsement. So, anyways, that's back to the dangerous part. But important context for what I'm about to say, which is that we do have more power in numbers, and so we stayed at the Capitol on the day that the House Public Education Committee held the hearing about this bill. They started at 8 a.m. They went till, I believe, 11 o'clock. Then they broke for floor, so they went to floor till about 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and then they came back to committee and were there till 6 a.m. the next day. So it was about if my math is mathing, then about a 16, 17 hour hearing. And we were there for all of it.
That's
And
amazing.
I mean, we survived on vending machine coffee. We survived on taking quick 10-minute naps on the floor. I mean, it was, and one person taking a turn to make sure that nothing crazy was happening, which
Yeah.
it was, but like, that was in our control. And those are the type we organized parents, students, teachers, not just from Austin, but across the state. We had people bus into Austin and tell lawmakers that we do not want this. And they listened. They too sat there for 17 hours and listened. We didn't end up getting what we wanted, but they sure as hell know that come November, people are not going to be happy. And I will say, right now, in the last Trump midterms, so 2018, Texas Democrats picked up 12 seats in the Texas House. They flipped 12 seats. This right now, the margin between Republicans and Democrats in the House is 14, either 14 or 16. So if we can flip maybe just 12, maybe the same amount, but I think we can flip more. Maybe we flip 14. Then we can be like within 2 votes of the margin that their majority would be. And so, I mean, in a realistic world, we could take back the Texas House, but
That'd
even
be
better,
amazing.
that would be so cool, but we could definitely, I think, close the margin right now. And honestly, I mean, up to like a little over 20 years ago, the 25 years ago, the state house was controlled by Democrats. And so like we like to think it was that long ago, and I mean, kind of what it was a much different time, but it still was like within a lot of people's lifetimes. And so, I mean, and it's been 30 something years since we elected a statewide Democrat. And a lot of people think that this is the year that James Talarico will make it happen. So we just have to wait and see. But I think that a lot of it comes down to public education, and not just
Yeah.
what Abbott and DeSantis are doing, but also Trump, because he is one of the ones that is leading the charge and making sure that these governors do that.
Yeah.
And not just at the state level, but also the federal voucher program, right? I mean, he's leading that. And these are some of the things that people see on a day-to-day basis. Families will see that their kids are in classrooms with 40 other kids. Families will see that their kids' special education programs are being cut. Families will see that many of their teachers' kids are being fired. And it's just, they understand that it's because the state and federal governments are setting up these school districts for failure. So I think this
Well,
is the
and while they're expanding and creating a federal tax credit voucher program, they're also completely cutting funding for migrant education. They're
right,
cutting funding for, students who are experiencing homelessness. There are so many really vital things that the federal government funds to ensure that students have an opportunity to succeed, and those things are being taken away so we can make sure wealthy families get a tax break, and then they could go to private school a little bit cheaper. And it
right.
really isn't about giving opportunity, it's about diverting funds into another way, which is so frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I do think that people are getting tired of the oligarchy. We're
Yeah.
living in in states and a nation where um, billionaires from even outside of our own communities are having more influence. And I think because of that, people are upset. And I hope that that upsetness translates into votes. I do think that our nation and our communities have been through a lot in the last, I would say, 10 years, um,
Yeah.
ever since Trump was first elected. And I finally think that this is the year that we're gonna take things back. We're gonna take things
Yeah.
back, and we're gonna make sure that we don't go backwards, and again, as we have. And so I despite all that you and I have talked about in the past two episodes, I think that there is reason for hope this year. And I think that it starts with what we're doing right now, which is educating people and making them understand the decisions that are being made and how it affects their everyday lives. And I think that we're going to reach more people that way. And I think come November, we're going to be having a much better time.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean it really is time that we start listening to people who are impacted by the policies that are being made. And I think especially right now, lawmakers aren't always doing that. They're not listening to how their policies are impacting the everyday person.
Yeah.
And we have a voice. That's what democracy is all about, right? Like is and for so long I as a person didn't participate. I mean, I wasn't like you who always like as a student was immediately engaged. But when I realized that my voice could make a difference, right? Like, because it's not just about my voice, it's about my voice and your voice and my neighbor's voice, and about us coming together and saying this is the future we want, and this that we're living in right now is not okay. It's not okay for any of us, except for maybe a few billionaires or who are doing really well. So,
Yeah. Well, next time we'll be coming back and we have an exciting discussion next time as well. And hopefully we will have some good news to share in that episode, I think. And I think folks will be excited to hear that. So, with that, we will close this episode out of Dangerously Optimistic Lessons in Resisting the Privatization of Public Education. And we're going to keep resisting, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.